How's it going, guys? We're back again with another video. I've had a number of comments and requests to talk about the mysterious white pickup truck that makes an appearance in the back of my YouTube videos from time to time. So in this video, we're going to talk about the story about getting that truck, and more specifically, the financial decisions around buying an older used vehicle like that as opposed to buying something that is brand new. Because that truck, as it is a 95, and I was born in 86, so I was 9 years old when that truck was manufactured, and that truck it's nearly as old as I am. So why would I buy an old used truck like that as opposed to buying something brand new right from the dealership? At the end, I'll show you some more detailed clips about some of the changes that I've made to the truck, what it looks like on the inside. It's nothing, too special or anything like that, but I'm sure some of you guys would find that interesting. So we'll show that at the end. But let's talk about how we acquired the truck and actually what truck it is. So it is a 1995 Ford F-250 XLT. So it's got the 7.3 liter diesel Power Stroke engine in it. It is a two-wheel drive truck. It's not the four-wheel drive model. It's not the extended cab or anything like that. So it's just got the standard cab at the front. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of the important stats. When I got it, it had 128,000 miles on it. So considering it's about 24 years old right now, that's only an average of just over 5,000 miles on it. So we bought the truck off of our neighbor's son. He is a Ford mechanic, and my neighbor, he's not an actual mechanic, but he's done lots of old tractor restorations, and he's kind of like a gearhead, so he just loves tinkering around with engines and motors and all that kind of stuff. He's a really cool neighbor to have because he helps me out with things like with my tractor and just little issues that have kind of popped up here and there. It's a really good neighbor to have, someone who's really into like engines and stuff and motors and vehicles and tractors. So Al, who is my neighbor, and his son Ryan, they bought the truck for a few $1,000s. I believe they bought it at an estate sale, and the truck wasn't running or anything like that, and that's because pack rats made a nest inside the engine compartment, chewed out the entire all the wiring inside of the engine, so they had to rewire everything to get it going and really clean up the engine compartment, because they told me that it smelled really bad after the pack rats made a nest in there. Fortunately, the pack rats didn't make their way into the cab of the truck, because if I did that, they would have chewed up all the carpeting, all the wiring inside the cab, and they would most definitely chewed up the seats as well. So the inside was mint, and then the body of the truck is pretty well mint with a few minor cosmetic things. They're not even dents in the truck, just a few kind of little paint things that I'll talk about at the end there. But that's kind of the story behind the truck. We bought it for $8,000, which I would say is probably just a little bit above the Kelley Blue Book value. But the added bonus of buying that truck from our neighbor's son is that he basically told me, he's like, if you have any issues with that truck, just bring it down to my place and we'll get you sorted out. So that's really nice to have a mechanic kind of on board. And since he's done so much work on the truck, it's really nice to have somebody that will be able to help me out if there are any major issues in the future. So with that out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty of buying a used vehicle, an older used vehicle, as opposed to buying something brand new. So I wanted to make this video because I did an Instagram post yesterday talking about basically something that is very prevalent in the United States and definitely through North America and in different parts of the world as well. Thinking about Australia, maybe a little bit in Europe, but it's the keeping up with the Joneses bullshit. So you see somebody else in a monetary sense, maybe they're elevating their life by buying a new house or buying a new car or buying, a new sports car or a new fancy this and that. And you're just like, man, I wish I had that. So you go out and you buy, or you want to keep up with your neighbor and not appear to be, like you're not as successful as them. So you go and upgrade your life too. The fortunate thing about this is that this is what really drives the economy. This is what keeps innovation going. But a lot of these decisions that people may make, and it's not necessarily a conscious thing that they're doing, it's typically more of an unconscious choice that they're making. And this is very evident with advertising and marketing, is that you want to keep up with your neighbors. You don't want to appear to be falling behind. But a lot of those choices that people make in terms of buying these vehicles or buying these new homes that they really can't afford, is that they're making a very poor financial decision. Now let's go into the nitty gritty about why it is typically, why it's typically a bad financial decision to buy a brand new vehicle right from the dealership. So when I look at material objects in my life, I probably have a much different opinion, or my attachment to material objects is probably much different than most people. And that's because I live an extremely simple and minimalistic lifestyle for, I think, about 3 years. So when I was doing my bike tours through Southeast Asia, everything that I owned fit on my bicycle. So I had a hybrid bicycle with 2 pannier bags. Everything that I owned for, pretty well about 3 years fit on that bicycle. So coming from that perspective, I had to really simplify and minimize my life. And so that meant getting rid of a lot of things. And through that experience, I learned how to get rid of things that had sentimental value to me and not feel bad about doing it. So when I'm looking at a material object, I'm more focused on not like the glitz and the glam behind it. I'm more interested in its utility. Like, what am I actually going to get from it? So when Hannah and I were thinking about buying a second vehicle, because living out here and only having one vehicle is certainly kind of tricky, and it's very limiting with an SUV, especially when you're doing construction and stuff. And we're like, we need to buy like a pickup truck or something like that. So when we were thinking about it, I had 4 requirements for the vehicle. Number 1 requirement is that it needs to be able to tow the tractor that we have. That's requirement number 1. So the towing capacity on that truck is 12,000 pounds. So when you take into account the weight of the tractor with the backhoe on it and the chipper, if the chipper was on the same trailer, you're looking, I think I calculated it out to be about 6,200 pounds or something like that. So the truck can tow 12,000. So when you factor in the weight of a trailer, which will probably be a gooseneck trailer, it'll be around 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. So that's well within the towing capacity of the truck. All right. Requirement number 1 is check. Number 2, I don't want to give you the middle finger. Number 2, it needs to have air conditioning. That's it. Number 3, it needs to have cruise control. And number 4, I need to be able to pay cash for it. And those were our 4 main requirements for the truck. And that was pretty much it. So when you're thinking about purchasing a vehicle, this is really important. Think about what it's actually going to be used for. You can get all the fancy features and you can get all the bells and the whistles and all that kind of jazz, but do you actually really even need them? Like, what is the primary reason for owning that vehicle? And for most people, it's just going to be traveling from point A to point B. So if you want to travel from point A to point B in a vehicle that is only worth $5,000 as opposed to a vehicle that is worth $100,000, I mean, it's still getting you from point A to point B. And the thing with vehicles is that they are what we call a depreciating asset. So let's look at this. Say I was going to go and buy a brand new Ford F-250 in Sierra Vista, Arizona, right today at the Ford dealership. I would be paying it's not quite the base model, but it's one step up, it looks like, just from all the other trucks that they got listed here. We're looking at around $63,000. So as soon as you take that truck, we're going to call it $60,000 just so that I can keep the math easier in my head. Say you buy that truck, you drive it off the lot, 20% of the value of that truck, gonzo. All right. So you paid $60,000 for the truck, and chances are you're going to be financing that truck. So the actual value, or the amount that you actually pay, will probably be more, unless you get 0% financing, which the actual financing or the interest is just worked into the price of the truck. But say you pay $60,000, you drive it off the lot, that truck is now worth $48,000. 20% of its value, you just lost $12,000. Great choice, right? Really, kind of when you look at it like that, it's like, God damn, I just lost $12,000. You drive that truck throughout the next year, obviously putting miles on it. You're probably going to lose about another 10% of its value. So then you're looking at the truck is only worth $42,000 after the first year that you paid $60,000 on. So I think a lot of people know that. A lot of people are aware that obviously a car depreciates, but they still get stuck into the trap of thinking, I got to buy a brand new vehicle. And there's a number of reasons why. One thing being reliability. And people are under the impression that if they buy a new vehicle, that it's going to be much more reliable than an older vehicle. So there's a couple counter arguments to this. Certain vehicles can last a very, very long time. Like these old Ford trucks are known to, have 300,000, 400,000, even 500,000 miles on them. We know that the truck itself is very reliable, since, people even on my Instagram post yesterday were talking about that, how they've got so many miles out of their old Ford trucks that have that specific engine in it. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, at handeeman with an underscore, get your shit together, follow me on Instagram because I post other cool stuff on there. But so we know the reliability of the vehicle is good. So the benefit of buying a used vehicle is such that you can research that vehicle online. And you can see whether or not people have been having major issues with that year and with that brand and with that model. You can just find it all online right now. In the past, you weren't really able to do that. So you can see whether or not a car is reliable and whether or not it's a lemon. And a lot of the major issues that I think a lot of people encounter with their vehicles is that they just don't take care of it, and they're not performing regular maintenance on it, and they're just not taking care of it the way that it should be taken care of. So that, to me, is more important than thinking, I've got to buy a brand new car just so that it's going to be reliable, as opposed to thinking, yeah, I can buy an older vehicle, but if I take care of it and maintain it properly, then it's going to last me a long time. So another good financial reason why buying an older used vehicle is definitely a good idea, because your insurance is definitely going to be a lot less as well. So instead of paying for insurance on a $65,000 vehicle, I only have to pay the insurance rate for a vehicle that is only worth probably $7,000 to $8,000. So my insurance rates are going to be a lot less. I'm going to save money that way. So something else to consider, especially if you're looking at different years and stuff, like you don't have to get something that is like that old. You don't have to get something that's 23, 24 years old. For example, Hannah and I, we bought our Jeep Compass. It's a 2013 Jeep Compass. We bought it when it had 24,000 miles on it. It's got well over 120,000 miles on it now. We've had no major issues with it or anything like that. So it's 6 years old now, and we've had it for about 3 years now, and we haven't had any major issues with it. But instead of thinking you have to buy something super old, I think a really good idea, if you want something that's obviously a little bit more modern and it's got some of the features that you want in it, is that buy something that's like 2 or 3 years old. The great reason behind that is that the person who bought that vehicle originally is going to be losing all their money on that initial depreciation. So let somebody else take the 30 or 40% hit on the value of the vehicle. You can come in 2 or 3 years when they're ready to upgrade to another car and stay in the debt train. You can go ahead and buy that vehicle that, is maybe about 3 years old. Maybe it doesn't have a crazy amount of miles on it. Maybe it's less than 50,000 miles or something. And you can go ahead and get that vehicle at a highly discounted price from when it was brand new. And the nice thing about doing that is that if you don't want something that's super old like mine, it's like you can get something a little bit newer that's got some of the features that maybe you really want. Maybe it's got like heated seats in it, and you love heated seats. You live, in Canada, or you live in the northern part of the States, and the heated seats are kind of nice. So if you want some of that luxury, you can still buy something that's still relatively new, but not have to pay a lot of that initial depreciation, because that's what cars are. Cars are depreciating assets. And that's how they should be looked at for the most part. And one of the really nice things about buying a used vehicle is that if I took a sledgehammer and put a dent in like the rear quarter panel or something like that, it's like, so what? Like, it's just an old truck. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But imagine if I went up to some guy's truck and he just paid $65,000 for it, took a sledgehammer to that same rear quarter panel, I don't think they would be that happy with that. So that is some of the major benefits of buying a used vehicle. With buying a new vehicle, new car shopping can certainly be a little bit easier because you know that the car is brand new and has never really been driven before. So that can give you a little bit of peace of mind. Obviously, newer vehicles will have much more advanced technology in them, which can be not only a pro, but also a con, because if those bells and whistles ever kind of fuck up, then it can be much more difficult to fix them. And you may have to take it to a dealership to get those things fixed. Whereas like an older truck, like ours, a lot of the things on it I could probably fix myself just through, watching YouTube videos or asking Ryan about it and fixing a lot of the things myself, because there's not so many electronics in it. It's kind of more basic in that. And buying a new vehicle, it certainly gives people a greater peace of mind. Because they know that it's brand new, but at the same time, you also don't know the history of that vehicle in terms of, you don't know how it's going to be in 2 or 3 years from now. Is it going to be a lemon? Is it going to be good? I don't know. It might be past its warranty stage at that point. So you just might not know exactly, but you're kind of hoping that it's going to be good. So that's one reason why I think like buying a used vehicle is certainly a good idea, because you know the history of that vehicle over the years of, whether or not it's going to be having major issues with it. But really, one of the nice things about buying used is that for a lot of the vehicles, you will be able to pay cash for, and you're not going to have any payments or anything like that. You can just buy it straight outright. If you make good financial decisions and you're not spending your money on a lot of dumbass shit, you can save your money and, just buy the vehicle outright and not have a car payment. I can't even remember. I don't think I've ever had a car payment in my entire life. So this is the 4th vehicle that I've owned. I paid for all the vehicles that I've owned with cash. I've never had a car payment. I've never bought a new car before. There are certain circumstances where I think buying a new vehicle may be advantageous, or going into debt on a vehicle, I guess would probably be the better thing to say. I think if the vehicle is going to make you money, then I think that if you wanted to go into debt and finance a vehicle, I think that's a good idea. If the vehicle is really not making you any money or anything like that, and it's more just like for personal use, then I think you should do your very best to try to save up for a car with cash instead of getting on a payment program and paying it off like that. That'll probably mean that you're going to buy an older style vehicle, and it's not going to be as glitzy and glamorous as someone else's vehicle, but it's a much better financial decision, because you're not going to be paying interest on it, and you're not going, and specifically if you're buying a used or a new vehicle, you're not going to be losing all that money through the depreciation of the vehicle. And this reminds me of something that just happened recently. So we took the truck, we drove it to Vegas. It's about a 7-hour drive, and we're going up to the Ultimate Weight Loss Conference, which is a conference that Hannah spoke at this past year. And we took the truck up, and it was good to take it for a nice long drive and to see how it worked and all that kind of stuff. And it's just really funny because it's like, financially, I know how well we're doing, but then I see other people and I see, oh wow, like that person's got like that brand new car, and it looks so good, and it's got all those nice features, it's not hard for me to not really give a shit about it, but I can understand that other people may be like, wow, I'm not really doing as well in life because I have an older vehicle and it's not really making, the same statement as like having a brand new vehicle or something like that. And it was funny, as we pulled up to the hotel that we're staying at in Vegas, and I'm pulling up an old Ford truck up to like basically the casino like check-in area where, they're probably used to seeing, really nice cars pulling up, and I'm just pulling up in our old Ford truck, and I couldn't give a fuck what anybody thinks about the material objects that I have in my life. It's just what I've learned over the years. I just don't give a fuck, right? I think it's badass that I'm driving that big old truck, that big old diesel truck that's loud and in charge, riding up to the resort/casino, right? And Hannah's parents, they went to Vegas just to kind of visit with us while she was doing the event. And Hannah's mother jumps in the truck. She's like, does this thing even have power windows? And I'm like, yes, it has power windows and it has power locks on it as well. But that's that kind of social pressure, right? That's that social pressure coming into play. Whereas like Hannah's mother, like she's so sweet, and it was funny. Like she didn't mean any harm by what she said or anything like that. But you might feel that social pressure. Maybe your friends or maybe your family are like, oh, like you got a really old vehicle and blah, 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 blah. And it's like a lot of that stuff, you just got to take those comments, not give a fuck at all what people think about it, and understand that you're making a much better financial decision for yourself, as opposed to keeping up with the Joneses and thinking, I have to buy something that's brand new. I have to have this certain type of status because I've got a nicer vehicle and blah, 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 and all that kind of shit. And you don't want to fall into that trap, because if you fall into that trap, you're always going to be making financial decisions that are not in your best interest. And those results and basically those decisions are going to have a major impact on your life, definitely in the future. Now, something else that a few people have asked me about, and they're like, what is your opinion on the Cybertruck? Ooh, the Tesla Cybertruck. It does look pretty badass. And the next truck that I get will be an electric truck. Will that happen in 3 years? Maybe. Will that happen in 5 years? Who knows? It's going to get to a point where the new electric trucks have been on the market for enough period of time that they've worked out a lot of the kinks and a lot of the issues with them. And at that point, when there's enough of them on the road and there's used vehicles popping up, then I will probably make the jump going from diesel to electric. But I'm not in any rush. I don't need to be an early adopter. I mean, to compare this truck, which is $8,000, it can tow 12,000 pounds, as opposed to the new Tesla Cybertruck, which the tri-motor one with the 500-mile range, it has a 14,000 pound towing capacity. So really the major difference between the two, other than obviously running on electric and not having all the fancy features and all that kind of stuff, the things that are important to me is the towing capacity. And it's only got a 2,000 pound increase in towing capacity. So ideally, even that truck itself is not the truck that I would want. I'd want a dually that can tow at least like 20,000 pounds. And that's basically going to be my requirements for when I get the next truck. I just want something with a little bit more towing capacity. And I like the dually. I like dually setups because it gives you a little bit more stability, especially when you're towing very heavy things. All right, guys, I hope that makes sense. But don't fall into the trap of, keeping up with the Joneses and just doing what other people do. Sometimes you have to look at your financial situation and make better choices that are not dictated by outside influences like advertising and marketing and your family making comments about your truck. Oh, does that thing even have power windows? It's like, just laugh at it. Be like, you know what? I know in my mind I'm making a better financial choice than just doing what everybody else does. All right, guys, that's kind of the main nitty gritty of the video. I'll show you some clips of some of the changes that I made on the truck. So one of the first things that I did on the truck, and I'm surprised that it hadn't been done yet, because pretty well every vehicle in Arizona has tinted windows. So I got the windows tinted. I also added these little side steps right here. Not for me. I can jump up in the truck no problem, but some older people have problems. So I put the little side steps there. So the cab of the truck is pretty well completely stock. I've made a few changes with things in here, but all the seats are still in great shape. All the carpet is still in good shape. Coming in here, so what I did was I switched out the old stereo. It had a cassette deck in here. So I put a Bluetooth stereo in here. So when I put my phone up here, I got my directions up here. So I got my navigation system, and then I can also play music from my phone right through the stereo. So I play obviously lots of things from Spotify. But pretty much on the inside, those are the only major kind of changes that I've made. That's pretty much it. But everything is still in really good shape on the inside, with the exception of these guys up here. So when the truck was sitting outside for a prolonged period of time, the visors, they were out like that. So it just got a lot of sun damage. I could replace these, but I don't even know if I really need to or want to. And then also people were telling me how to fix the ceiling as well. If this starts to droop down quite a bit, then we'll have to re-glue it or something like that. So to see how many miles it's got, so now it's got 136,000 miles. So like I said earlier, the body of the truck still in really good shape. And nice thing about the back here is that you can fit a full 4x8 sheet piece of plywood in here. I've got these little things that you can stick under the tires if I ever get stuck. I didn't actually buy those. The UPS driver that got stuck on our property once forgot them, so I've held on to them. And then I've also got the little cover topper thing for the back as well. So if I want to transport things and not have them get wet or be in the direct sun, I can just throw that on the back of the truck. So how do you like the truck?
It's great. It's very manly. I can't drive it because it's too big.
Too big? That's too bad.
But it's good for
hauling stuff, eh?
Eh?
So the only major cosmetic thing with the truck is just repainting the roof. This looks like it's really bad, but in Arizona, this is not really that big of a deal. I've seen vehicles with way worse, basically skins on them like this, but my neighbor's got a spray gun, so he said that we can repaint the roof at some point there and get it all cleaned up. Having a truck, really, really important, especially for off-grid homesteading, for doing construction. It makes your life so much easier. My goodness, it is so worth it.